I was heading back from the parking lot with a box of breakfast tacos and 2 iced coffees when I saw her walk through the front doors like she owned the damn place. No badge, no sign-in, no glance at security. Just straight through the lobby like it was a red carpet premiere. And somehow the CEO himself had been waiting to roll it out for her. White sneakers, cropped jacket, big sunglasses you only wear indoors if you're rich or trying way too hard to look like it. Couldn't have been older than 25. And there he was, Robert A. Elkins, the guy who used to make interns cry just by asking where they went to school. He walked up to her with both arms out like some proud uncle at a graduation, smiling. Not the stiff, "I'm doing this for PR" kind either. This was full-on, happy to see you, the kind of smile I hadn't seen on that man in 10 years. I stood half-shifted out of the way near the elevator, coffee cooling in my hand, watching her like I was trying to remember if I'd seen her in a company memo. I hadn't. No one moves like that unless they've already been handed the crown. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. She walked right past the front desk, didn't even glance at reception. The desk guy looked confused, then shrugged. I caught his eye and raised my brows. He just mouthed, "No idea," and went back to pretending to type. And then, just as the elevator opened, she turned, looked dead at me through those sunglasses like she already knew me. "You must be Mark," she said, with a smirk like we were in on some inside joke. I blinked. "Yeah, and you are? I'm the one replacing you." Then she stepped into the elevator, didn't say goodbye, didn't say nice to meet you, just turned around as the doors closed, like it was already done. I stood there, tacos getting cold, heart thudding like I'd just missed a turn on the highway. She didn't look back. Next morning, I'd barely logged in, hadn't even touched my second coffee, when a calendar invite popped up. No subject line, just a location. Executive Room 4. No one used that room unless something was already decided. I didn't even bother responding. Just grabbed my badge, left my laptop open, and walked down the hall like I was heading into a courtroom. Executive Room 4 sat tucked behind the main conference wing, the kind of place where ideas went to die behind soundproof doors. I pushed in, and there they were. Elkins at the head of the table, suit pressed, face calm like a priest about to deliver last rites. Karen from HR sitting beside him with that tight fake sympathy smile. And her. Same girl. She was in my chair, the one reserved for our director of ops, legs crossed, elbows planted like she'd been there forever. No one said hello. Elkins leaned forward, folded his hands, and hit me with the slow, quiet voice he only used when he wanted to sound thoughtful while screwing someone. "Mark," he said, like it hurt, "you've done good work for years, but it's time for fresh leadership, to reflect our evolving mission." Right on cue, Karen slid a folder across the table like it was the dinner menu at a funeral. I opened it and saw exactly what I knew I would. My termination letter. 3 signatures. Not just Elkins, not just Karen. The third was Derek. 12 years, 12 goddamn years. I trained that guy from day one. I covered for him when he spilled coffee in the server cabinet. Bailed him out when he forgot firewall protocol before a vendor audit. Taught him how to build scalable load balances from scratch. And now, his signature sat there like a knife, tilted slightly like he was in a rush. No conversation, no notice, just paper. "Excited to build on what you started," the girl chirped, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, like this was a group project she'd just joined halfway. "You left a strong foundation." I stared at her, dead in the eyes. "What's your name?" She smiled. "Madison." Of course it was. Elkins cut in before I could say anything else. "We'd like this transition to be clean, respectful. We've arranged severance, access until end of day. Andy T will assist you with offboarding." I said, blinking. "That'd be Derek, right?" Karen cleared her throat. "We're committed to making this process as smooth as possible." I picked up the letter and looked over the signature line again. Derek's name stared back at me, black ink on cream cardstock, next to the words, "with executive authority." I folded the folder shut. "So that's it," I said. "After 2 decades of keeping this place from burning to the ground, you're giving me a folder and a stranger in my seat." Karen flinched. Elkins didn't. "I know this isn't easy," he said, "but Madison represents the next chapter. She brings vision, she understands agile systems, vertical scaling." "I built the architecture she's going to break," I cut in. Madison didn't flinch. She actually smiled. And now I get to improve it. Like it was a baton pass, like I hadn't put half my life into those walls. I stood up. "Don't worry," I said. "You'll get your transition." Elkins gave a nod like he'd just finished euthanizing a dog. Madison watched me walk out, smug as hell, like she'd already won. I stepped into the hallway, heart hammering, hands shaking so bad I almost dropped the folder. I wanted to scream. Instead, I kept walking. I passed Derek's office on the way back to mine. Door closed, lights off, coward. By noon, my office looked like a storage unit. Framed photos, stress ball, a half-dead plant I dragged from 3 jobs ago, all crammed into a cardboard box, like I was some temp getting reassigned. The shelf where I kept vendor manuals and spare cables was already bare. I'd left the whiteboard untouched, let them figure out what the symbols meant. No one stopped in, not Derek, not Elkins, not even Rachel, the intern I helped land her first job out of state. The silence made it worse, like I'd already vanished and they were just letting the room catch up. I was taping the box shut when Derek finally showed. Stood in the doorway like a kid waiting to be grounded, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed somewhere behind me. "Mark," he started, voice low. "I didn't know it would go like this. They told me last minute. I've got a kid now and..." I cut him off. "When they yanked my admin access..." He froze. "You know," I added, stepping around the desk, "the root privileges, the keys to the engine I built. When they pull those..." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Finally, he muttered, 4 days ago." I laughed. Short, dry, ugly. "So I was still showing up," I said, "logging in at 6, patching third-party modules before they failed, fighting vendor latency issues, and they already had me locked out?" He didn't say anything. "I trained you, Derek." He looked at the floor. "You could have told me." "They made me sign an NDA," he said. "It was pressure from the department heads. I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice." I picked up the box and walked past him. He stepped aside like he didn't want to touch the guilt. The hallway was quiet, too quiet for a Friday. I passed 2 open offices and nobody looked up. Elevator took forever, like it knew I didn't belong anymore. When I got to the lobby, I stopped at the HR kiosk, the one they usually kept staffed with some perky assistant and a bowl of peppermints. Today, it was empty. I set the box down, pulled out my phone, and logged into the admin dashboard with the credentials I wasn't supposed to still have. They hadn't purged me yet. Took 2 clicks to find the audit trail. System control transferred. Effective 10:07 a.m. 3 days ago. So even after the access pull, even after the NDA meetings, they flipped the switch without telling me. They'd kept me around to smile through stand-ups and cover daily ops, while Madison played queen in my chair and Elkins wrote me out like a bug report. I stared at the timestamp for a second, burned it into memory, then logged out. Didn't say goodbye to anyone, didn't leave a note, just grabbed the box, pushed through the double doors, and stepped into the August heat. Same jacket, same badge still clipped to my belt. By the time the elevator doors shut behind me, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was awake. Back home, I dropped the box by the door and didn't touch it. Didn't take off my shoes, didn't even turn on the lights. I went straight to the corner desk, dug my old laptop out from under a stack of unopened mail, and fired it up. It was slow, fans whining like it hadn't breathed in years. But I waited. I wasn't in a rush anymore. Once the desktop loaded, I opened the archives. Took a minute, but I found it. The thread. Subject: IP ownership clarification. Legal had reached out about a year ago, asking me to finalize IP transfer documentation for system architecture assets. I remembered the email. I'd flagged it, then buried it. There were follow-ups, a couple of check-ins, and one marked high importance. I'd never signed a damn thing. I scrolled through the attachments. One reply from their internal counsel stood out, forwarded from some senior compliance analyst. It read, "Pending signature from Trenton. No formal transfer on file." Another line, further down. "As of current, intellectual property remains with creator. Status: unclaimed." I leaned back in my chair. They didn't own it. They were running my engine, my structure, my entire blueprint, off paper that never had my name scratched off. All those lectures Elkins gave about due diligence, the legal chain he worshipped like gospel, He skipped the one thing that would have made the whole thing airtight: my signature. And without that, the architecture wasn't just mine in spirit, it was mine by law. I clicked over to a local folder I'd kept synced to a private backup server. Everything was still there: source trees, modular expansions, devlogs, architectural maps. Each version time-stamped, each commit ID logged under my credentials. I copied it all over, dumped the entire set onto a fresh drive, encrypted and renamed every folder for clean visibility. I didn't even bother hiding it. Then I created a top-level folder and named it in all lowercase: Aftermath. That was the moment it shifted. It wasn't just about the job anymore. It wasn't about Derek's cowardice or Elkin's arrogance or Madison's smirk. It was about leverage. They thought I was disposable. They thought I was just a name in a log file. But the foundation, the actual engine behind their shiny new rollout, was never theirs. It was mine. I saved everything twice, uploaded a mirrored copy to a second cold storage vault I'd kept for emergencies, and sat back. Sunlight was bleeding through the blinds now, hitting the dust on the floor like it was trying to remind me the day had changed. It had. I stared at the word Aftermath one more time, then closed the laptop. They thought I walked out empty-handed. They had no idea what I'd kept. As soon as the laptop shut, I opened it again and plugged in the drive. I wasn't done. Not close. I logged into the old dev mirror node, the one I'd built 5 years back to stress test load balancing during the logistics pilot. Most folks forgot it even existed. Nobody at the executive level even knew it could still connect. But it was there, still alive, still fully wired into the core system, still invisible. I tunneled in and let the log scroll. It took about 30 seconds for the real problem to light up the screen. Madison had been busy, renaming core files, stripping out failsafes I'd hard-coded for vendor stability, editing load distribution logic, and doing it without version backups. No sandbox, no archive points. Just straight up fixing things that weren't broken to begin with. She'd cleaned the version history so aggressively I almost laughed. That's how I knew she didn't understand the system. This wasn't some plug-and-play SaaS setup. This was a custom framework that protected itself. I didn't build it to be cute. I built it to outlive incompetence. She thought she was reorganizing. What she was really doing was slicing out the redundancy layers, the parts designed to catch exactly the kind of lazy edits she was making. But I didn't nuke it. I didn't rage delete or push a dirty override. That would have been too obvious, too traceable. Instead, I rewrote the fallback trigger, quietly. Trigger condition: if my original admin account is ever removed from the system. Response: freeze all runtime activity across the architecture. Not delete, not damage. Just stop everything mid-function. I buried the command deep, 2 levels beneath a decoy caching subroutine. Wrapped it in a layer of error-handling logic that looked like legacy cleanup. Anyone reading it would think it was just deprecated code waiting for phase-out. Then I set the reactivation key to biometric only, mine. The second that account was scrubbed, the engine would lock, all dashboards would hang, all APIs would choke, every vendor pipeline would flatline, but the data would remain intact, untouched. I wasn't burning the house down. I was turning off the lights and locking the doors. When I finished coding the trigger, I saved the script. Then I opened the log files. Madison's user ID showed up in every change since the morning after I was canned. I pulled her entire activity log, timestamps, file paths, change types, IP addresses. She'd touched nearly every system in the backbone, all under her own login. No masking, no tokens. Sloppy as hell. I compiled it into a single document and named it cleanly: inheritance.pdf. One copy went to the drive, another to the mirror node, a third to my encrypted archive, all marked with hash verification so they couldn't claim tampering later. Last thing I did was ping the node to confirm heartbeat. Still green, still invisible, still mine. They took the title, the office, the staff. But the system? They never took the blueprint. At 10:24 a.m. sharp, I got the email. Subject: access revoked. Body: effective immediately. All credentials tied to your account have been deactivated. That was it. No thanks, no goodbye. Just a digital execution notice, plain and cold. They thought they'd cut the cord. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number, not local, I answered. Mark Trenton? The voice asked. Calm, professional, mid-40s maybe, slight edge under the tone. Yeah, I said, already sitting forward. This is Daniel Vega, he said, VP of Infrastructure at Orion Dynamics. I blinked, sat back. Orion, the same company Alderton undercut last year on the transnational logistics contract, using my system as the selling point. I still remembered the demo they'd staged to win the deal. Half my architecture, none of my credit. Vega kept talking. We heard you're free. I didn't answer. He paused, then added, We've followed your work for a while, quietly. We know what was yours, and what they claimed. That landed. I'm offering you full architectural control, he continued. From the ground up, clean budget, no legacy mess. We want you leading the rebuild, same vertical, bigger scale. I stared at the wall. My coffee had gone cold again, but I didn't move. An equity, he said. Founding level, co-creator stake. This isn't a contract gig. My jaw tightened. He wasn't pitching like a recruiter. This was different. He didn't sound like someone shopping talent. He sounded like someone picking up a dropped weapon. Why now? I asked. Because we saw what they did, he said. And because your code just went dark. That tells me you didn't leave empty-handed. I let the silence stretch. He waited. Smart. I finally said, Let's talk in person. Name the time, Vega replied. I'll be on the next flight to Denver. Done. I'll have a driver waiting. We hung up. I stood up, grabbed my backpack, and pulled the encrypted drive off the desk like it was nothing more than a flash stick. I didn't pack clothes. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even lock the door behind me. They pulled the plug thinking I'd fade out quietly, but all they did was free me up and turn their biggest liability into someone else's secret weapon. 1 month later, I was sitting in Orion's HQ, 12th floor, corner office, real air conditioning for once. The new system was up and running, better, cleaner, built for scale, no dead weight. Everything wired tight with full redundancy. We weren't patching holes. We were building the whole damn ship from scratch. I had a fresh cup of coffee in one hand and the master console on my screen when the notification hit. Live stream, Alderton Sync launch, 10:00 a.m., right on schedule. I clicked the link. The screen loaded with that glossy, overproduced corporate lighting. Madison stood dead center on stage in a navy dress, mic clipped to her collar like she was about to host a TED Talk. Our Sync platform, she said, smiling big for the camera, is a revolutionary step forward in predictive logistics. I sipped my coffee, no rush. She clicked the demo remote. The big screen behind her showed the dashboard, same layout I'd designed down to the column widths. No credit, obviously. She was calling it the Madison engine. I almost choked laughing. She launched the vendor prediction tool. I checked the clock. 10:07 a.m., trigger time. The dashboard flickered. Madison paused mid-sentence, hands still hovering near the remote. A spinning wheel appeared in the top right corner. One of the API windows stalled, then another. I watched the error logs start rolling in from the corner of the stream. 504 gateway timeout. 504. 504. A guy offstage leaned forward, whispered something to someone at the tech booth. You could see it happening in real time. Panic, confusion, the slow horror of realizing something was broken, and no one knew where or why. She tapped the clicker again. Nothing happened. The predictive engine was dead. Inventory sync stopped populating. Load balancing went flatline. One by one, the entire dashboard collapsed like a folding chair under dead weight. I hadn't destroyed anything. I'd paralyzed it. The fallback trigger executed perfectly. Soft kill. Functions frozen, but data untouched. The engine locked down tight with every critical thread, spun into a recursive loop, waiting for biometric reauth. Mine. Madison's voice cracked through the live stream. We're experiencing a temporary connection delay. Our team is cut. Hard. They dropped the feed. I refreshed my feed tabs. Twitter had already noticed. Sync fail. Madison crash. Who built? It one post had a freeze frame of her mid-sentence, face all tension and sweat. Another showed the error logs popping up like fireworks. Orion's social team pinged me on Slack. Just checking. This wasn't us, right? I replied with a smiley, then followed up with, all systems stable. Ours is untouched. Vega stepped into my office right as a Bloomberg alert hit my phone. Alderton Technologies halts sync rollout after critical demo failure. He raised an eyebrow. Didn't even touch the source code, did you? Nope, I said. It shut itself down. We both looked at the screen. Madison was off it now, replaced by some placeholder graphic and the classic technical difficulties banner. I took another sip of coffee. They thought I was out. Thought they could erase me and walk around in my code like it was theirs. But I didn't need revenge. I just needed gravity to do its job. Vega came back 10 minutes later. No knock, just walked straight in and dropped a folder on the table. Heavy paper, real signatures, no email attachments. This was the kind of deal people printed when they meant it. He tapped the cover once. Official title, he said. Equity, full control. I opened it and started reading. Lead architect. Innovation Council, voting seat. 2% stake with growth protections. 0 oversight on system design. Vega sat across from me while I flipped through, not saying a word until I hit the last page. You rebuilt in 4 weeks, he said. What they took 20 years to destroy. He wasn't wrong. I'd pulled legacy rot out of the foundation. Rebuilt vendor flows from scratch. Hard-coded new resilience layers with variable logic Madison wouldn't even know how to diagram. The difference was, now I wasn't working in the shadows anymore. Priya, their CTO, stepped in as Vega slid a pen across the desk. She didn't sit, just leaned one hand on the chair next to me and said, "This time, your name's on the code." I didn't smile. I didn't need to. I signed, no hesitation, no second thoughts, no quiet little voice telling me to double-check clause 14. Done. They took everything they could and left me with a box and silence. Now I had a system, a seat at the table, and equity with my name baked into the bylaws. Not some ghost in the machine. Not the guy behind the curtain. Mine. Priya nodded once. Vega closed the folder. Neither said anything else. They didn't have to. I looked out the glass wall to the mountains in the distance, then leaned back in the chair they gave me. Not because someone retired or someone failed, but because I built something they couldn't fake. Let the others scramble. I was home. I was still in the office finalizing the rollout spec for Phase 2 when my phone buzzed on the desk. Caller ID. Robert A. Elkins. I stared at it for a second, thumb hovering over decline. But I answered. Pure curiosity. "Mark," he said, like we'd just spoken last week. "I know this is unexpected." I didn't say anything. He cleared his throat. "Look, things are falling apart. Fast, the system's stalled, vendors are backing out, and legal's breathing down my neck." Still silent. "We need your insight. Madison," he hesitated. "She's in over her head. You were always the one who—" I cut him off. "You calling for advice?" He exhaled like this was costing him something. "Not a demand, just a favor. Between old colleagues." Old colleagues. The man had dropped me in a conference room like trash and signed me out with a smirk. Now he wanted favors? I kept my voice flat. "I'm not your guy anymore. Mark, be reasonable. You know this engine better than anyone." I didn't let him finish. "You took the name off the door," I said. The mind walked out with it. That landed. I could hear it. That short, awkward silence where he might have actually felt it. I almost gave him something. Almost. But then I remembered standing in that elevator with a box full of 20 years, and him smiling at Madison like I never existed. So I hung up. No warning, no goodbye, just tap, call ended. The screen went dark, and that was it. That was the last time we spoke. 1 year later, I walked through the same lobby I'd once left, with a cardboard box in my hands and 20 years behind me. Only now, the name above the entrance was different. Orion Global Systems. Clean font, backlit steel, no trace of Alderton left. Even the color of the walls had changed. Lighter, sharper, new glass, new energy. I stepped inside, slow and steady. No badge required. The front desk didn't even flinch. Right by reception, I saw it, framed and mounted in the center of the wall. A photo of me, mid-pitch, hands in motion, mouth open mid-sentence. Below it, a brushed metal plaque read, "Mark Trenton, Architect of the Future." It didn't feel fake. It didn't feel flashy. It felt earned. The new receptionist looked up, probably fresh out of college, bright eyes, zero corporate scars. She smiled right away. Everyone knows who you are. I gave her a nod and kept moving. Same elevators, same hum, different ride. I took it all the way up to the top floor. No more middle-tier passcodes or shared suites. This was executive level, full access. My office was at the end of the hallway. Glass walls, mountain views, no cubicle maze in sight. Natural light cut across the polished floor like a runway. I walked in, dropped my bag, and sat at the desk. No clutter, just a single screen, biometric lock, and a leather notebook I barely used anymore. I tapped the sensor. System unlocked. Patent review page was already pulled up. Legal had prepped the final docs for sign-off. New logistics engine, cleaner, faster, with real-time adaptive scaling. No press release, no champagne, no performative clapping from people who'd forget your name a week later. In just one line, status, pending inventor signature. I clicked approve. A soft ping confirmed it. Filed, locked, protected. Outside, the city kept moving. Planes cut through the sky, cars piled up on the expressway. Life didn't pause for anyone, but inside everything finally felt aligned. They fired me thinking I was just a name in their system, a line item they could delete. What they forgot was that I was the blueprint.